Hello. It is May 18th, 2025, and it's 1,751 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks there on Fort Bliss, and they ended his life. Um, who are they? Well, it was internal. It was absolutely internal. Leilani Hart, a prime suspect in the case, said that it was a code red. Code red. Those aren't my words. Those were her words. And of course, she filed an affidavit um, against her family members for the worst type of crimes against children, illegal weapons purchasing, um, being in possession of child films on the worst type of crimes against children. And so, we also have other and it's 1,007 other I can hear everybody other witnesses like Director of Emergency Services Thomas Kane. We have a letter from him that confirms that Colonel James Brady um, is a traitor. Really, is a traitor when you measure everything. When you measure the Walmart mass shooting and the cartel involvement on Fort Bliss, the hundreds of thousands of taken children that were trafficked that are now mostly dead. When you think about the ordered obstruction and interference with Richard's case by Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe and having Colonel um, Brady um, ban Judge Roger Rodriguez from Fort Bliss because in his official in his official um, uh, capacity, that's the right word, in Judge Rodriguez's official capacity, he filed a whistleblower report identifying the prime suspects, Leilani Hart and Tavita Nusa, CID agent right there on Fort Bliss, as the prime suspects in Richard's murder case, which identified, of course, Richard's platoon leader, Dallas Hart, and James Hart, who was in the VA there with IDS Pueblo. And so there was absolutely an order. It's been confirmed by Kayla Cardona, who was, of course, connected to Leilani Hart, that Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe absolutely ordered the obstruction and interference in the investigation into our son's murder case because he didn't want another Vanessa Guillen situation. He didn't want another Vanessa Guillen situation. And of course, she was in a relationship with Eric Johnson from CBP and also having security clearance um, while married to a JAG paralegal on base. But the problem is that Eric Johnson admitted in front of um, probably around 40 people that he loved crack cocaine. And yeah, so and her connection with cartel, her being the assistant to Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe, and then having the conflict of interest with her husband being in working as a paralegal in the JAG office there on Fort Bliss, and then her relationship not only with Eric Johnson of CBP, but also the attorney CBP, um, Chris Meisner. Uh, R.I.P. He's passed away. He's passed away. Just a couple weeks ago, he passed away. Chris Meisner did at what not even 50 years old, not even 50 years old. Um, so this is really, uh, when you look at Colonel Brady and his order to obstruct the whistleblower in Richard's case and obstruct his, because you see he was in his official capacity as judge. He could go and look at Richard everything. He could look at Richard's everything on base. So they illegally blocked illegally as DES Thomas Kane clearly confirmed in the letter. And we've posted the letter, and I need to repost it because it really, will wow. Well, it's like, really? Wow. Um, and don't forget that DES Thomas Kane, knowing all of this because he's the director of emergency services and he had the control of all the cameras and everything on Fort Bliss and uh, there was just so many terrible things going on Fort Bliss in this time, including a 14-year-old girl living in the barracks for four months, compromising every soldier in the barracks. Compromising. Can you imagine? You have a 14-year-old girl living in the barracks. You can absolutely blackmail. You can absolutely use that against every soldier. It is just absolutely a security breach. And that young girl was the stepdaughter for one of DES Thomas Kane's security guards. And so, you see that there was really a facilitating of compromising of our soldiers. Also, facilitating the criminal trafficking that was cartel-tied with our military on our military base. The evidence is just mountains high, mountains high. And he also is the one, when asked about Richard in a very callous way, said, well, he's just good food for a good meal for the coyotes, right? A good meal for the coyotes, which, if you're some rotten person, okay, you might get away with saying something like that. But for the DES to say something like that, the director of emergency services for Fort Bliss to say something like that about one of his soldiers, because it's his job to keep every one of those soldiers and our equipment and our base secure. And for him to say something like that is just absolutely a breach of everything, every bit of his duty, a breach of every bit of his duty. So this is, and I know it's very late. We're burning the midnight oil, but it just couldn't be helped because all of the evidence is piling in, and there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. And, for all the naysayers, right, that, I just want to give hope to everybody and what we've done and what is being done right now. We are working very, very hard to make sure that there's accountability. We're not giving up. Have we seen a big green machine in front of us? My husband calls it the big green mean machine. Um, and I want to say the compromised. I want to say, why the hell are we paying taxes? Because of, that goes to paying for this disaster that we have, this security breach that we have, this national security crisis that we have, in our Senate, in our Congress, in our justice system, even in the White House, in the highest office. We had Biden, and he was for 4 years. He was absolutely sick. He was absolutely mentally sick, not capable of having the position of the president of the United States and everything that entails, um, and having to be the CEO of all his secretaries, right? All of his secretaries. And he didn't even talk to them for months. Um, it is just really, it's just unbelievable the amount of fraud, waste, and abuse, the grand larceny, the deception, and what this does is corroborate, because we want to stay focused here. Corroborates the rogue, the rogue uh, officers and the rogue leaders, and which and illegally rogue. And this reminds me of Ken Paxton's um, statements today or yesterday. I first read them yesterday, and we're going through it all because El Paso County is suing the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, because in 2024 he passed a new regulation that they have to give him access to cases to cities over 400,000, which is El Paso, has to give him access to cases for review. Um, and we didn't know about this until this lawsuit came up, and we're very very happy that Ken Paxton is saying, open up your cases, district attorney in El Paso, because the DAs there are fake. The DAs are illegally rogue. They're rogue and they're illegal, and they're fake. They're fake. They're illegal. They're rogue, and absolutely they've been obstructing and interfering. Um, in the Walmart mass shooting case and in our son's case, the Fort Bliss whistleblower soldier Richard Halliday that was reporting on the cartel military tied criminal trafficking. And so, yes, give it over to Ken Paxton. And they don't want to, you see. They don't want the oversight. They don't want the checks and balances. They are like, they rather try to bring a lawsuit up, and he calls them out and calls them rogue. And I want to call, you need to call them illegally fake rogue, because the DA there, and you notice that it was Christina Sanchez that came out, the county attorney, and because um, James Montoya could not answer for this lawsuit against AG Paxton, even though he's the object of it, right? It's his, his usurpation of that office that is really uh, the target, right? And Richard's case, I'm hoping, and the Walmart mass shooting case, I'm hoping, and these big cases, because absolutely they need oversight. But James 2028 stamp Montoya, he can't get out there and do the PR of this. He can't go out there and beat his chest and say, oh no, we need privacy or whatever. We can't have the oversight. We can't have the transparency. We can't let you know how much we really spent on the Walmart mass shooting case, how much we really spent on Richard's case, how much, how much did we cover up? How much did we obstruct? How much did we erase? How much did we do the 86 with, right? The 86, the throwing out, the tampering, the timestamp tampering, the 2028 stamp, right? The failed installations, the witness intimidations, the plotting, the conspiring, the all of these things that are going on in El Paso County, because it's cartel tied. It's cartel tied, and it is absolutely military industrial complex contract tied, because and those contracts are tied to the the cartel. And I've always wondered, why would they want to do that? Why would they want to be treasonous? Why would they want to be traitors? And it's very, very clear now. It's because they have to manage whistleblowers, and they want as few whistleblowers as possible that would have the guts to uh, write out a report or to call law enforcement and to report what they have seen. Um, their their criminal trafficking is so encompassing with with the children, with the illegal films, with the weapons and any other hardware, including ammunition. Uh, Also, all the substances, all of that. That is all ways to compromise people so much that they can't even be whistleblowers, you see, so that the contracts that they make, that no bid contract, we know of one of them. We know of yeah, and we know all about the contracts. Um, they're shady. They're very, very shady. Um, and it's millions of dollars, y'all. It's millions of dollars. And so in order to operate shady of these military contracts, government contracts, open checkbook contracts, open checkbook cases, um, to charge the taxpayer way, 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 way fraudulent amounts, way more than what is absolutely necessary. I mean, it's so bad, the fraud, waste, and abuse, the grand larceny, and we can't even fathom at this time how much they're stealing from us, because the true prices of everything, the true price of our security, the true price of law enforcement, everything is really, we don't know. We don't know it, because it's so inflated. It's been so inflated. It's kind of like this whole pharmaceutical thing where, and I lived in Europe, so you can get something for 20, $30 there, and you come over here and it's $1,500, right? And you can, if you live on the border, you absolutely know that. You get a gun, you can get a gun for $200, $300, and you can go and sell it across the border for $1,500. So, and that's what they were doing with the Walmart gift cards. Um, so, uh, it's very clear how this whole thing is exposed, and is operating, and with these underground tunnels, and hear all the talk about the fence, and all along they have all these underground tunnels, right? They have all these tunnels that go everywhere, all over El Paso. So, and and the thing is that this is a God thing, because I learned about that when I was in eighth grade. I was in eighth grade, and we lived there, and I was going to Bassett, and I was swimming with the sand sharks, and very, very in shape, as a young girl, very, very in shape, and jogging with my dad all over Fort Bliss. And we talked. Those are sweet memories. But he told me there were uh, uh, tunnels everywhere, everywhere. Okay, because and that's why I say that El Paso is an ancient city, and I don't even think we get taught that, but you can see it on any map, on Google Earth or whatever. You can see the grid, and that grid is that like underground, and there was water there, a lot more water there in the past. And I know that in the Rio Grande, there was a lot more water when I was a girl. So there's a water mafia, and then you have all of this cartel activity that has been facilitated into really, it's been facilitated into El Paso and facilitated onto our military base and into our military because that criminal trafficking that's connected to the cartel, you know, El Paso is the front door, right? El Paso is the front door with Fort Bliss. And then it gets trafficked to many other different places. So this is far reaching. This is very far reaching. So I don't think um, it is an accident that Alexander Gerhard Hofmann, a German national, was targeted at the Walmart and and it's a cartel style like execution because it was a headshot, right? It was a headshot, and that is not. You look at any kind of mass shootings, that's not what you see. So there was two, and there might have been more. There might have been more. But even Memo Garcia had things to say before he passed away because he lived months after. So yeah, this is all cartel tied. This is military tied, and it goes high up. When you think about Mealy, when you think about Austin, when you think about McConville, these are all generals. These are all generals. General Kelly, um, General Kelly was Southcom, right? Was the Southern commander. Uh, it, and his relationship with Comey, the FBI director, up to no good. They're all up to no good. And we pay them, y'all. This is our tax money. I just think we need to withhold our tax money from them. I really do. And what the heck is the the Congress doing about this? We need to hold our money from them because they're not doing their job, right? They're doing us harm. They're doing us harm. And then you have the situation like we're in, where you want to get justice for a major, you know, um, a capital case. You want to get justice, just like in the Walmart case, the victims they want justice, and you know you have the obstruction. You have the obstruction and the interference and the callousness. And we have evidence upon evidence upon evidence, and I'll be sharing it with you. And I think Ken Paxton, now that he wants to run for senator of Texas, um, John Cornyn's position, which I hope he gets. I hope he gets. But this is a good case to watch because he is asking for the the case files for oversight of the case files, the Walmart case, the Richard Halliday's case, and El Paso County judicial system, which is totally broken, right? It's totally been sabotaged with a fake medical examiner, fake judges, fake DAs, and then you have the Mayellas in the federal courthouse, the Mayella Crucius family, that absolutely were uh, drowning in their participation in this Walmart mass shooting, Patrick Crucius case. Okay, the Mayellas, the Michael Mayellas, Lorraine Mayellas, they're absolutely uh, with Patrick's brother and Alexis Mayella, and Brian Crucius, Brian Blake Crucius. So yeah, they're this was not a random place. All the narrative was absolutely false, and the media did that. The media did that, and so they need to be held accountable too. They absolutely need to be held accountable. So it is really sad again to bring another leader, and I don't even know if he made general, but Colonel James Bradley. Brady, sorry, James Brady, is up to no good. He's absolutely up to no good and cannot be. And also from New Mexico, it's like they bring all these generals home, but no, I think it's because of the connections. I think it's somebody in HR is creating all these positions, and and it's no wonder. I mean, it is a wonder why, like, Eddie Nieto is in the FBI field office in El Paso. Why wasn't he in Washington, D.C.? He would have been better in the Hoover building. But no, they put a native with cartel ties and his wife in working on Fort Bliss in intelligence in that area. Now, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of stink around this, a lot of rot, and that rot goes to Washington, D.C., right? It goes to Washington, D.C. So, you know, please share this information that we're giving out, and we hope that you have a great evening. And of course, we're not forgetting about Judge Sam Madrano and Joe Spencer of the Walmart mass shooting. We are not. They wanted to just close it down and like say, oh, okay, well, you know, it's closed now. Forget everything. Give Patrick Crucius a hug and let's get on our way. We got our millions. We got our millions and millions. We got our open checkbook. We did our delay and our seal and our deal, and our gag order and everything like that. And you know, um, so let's forget about it. Let's not think about the other shooters. Let's not think about the other shooters, right? Let's not think about all the people that died throughout this whole case too, not just on the day of the massacre, but throughout this whole case. So it is really a stain on the United States, really on El Paso, until we get accountability. So, and it takes, stains take a lot of rubbing. They take a lot of rubbing to get out. And, and so we haven't forgotten. We haven't forgotten one bit about their violations, about their criminal activity. So thank you, Anicia, for coming on. Thank you for your prayers and your love. And, we just have to continue to expose this huge criminal syndicate that includes military and the cartel, and what Richard was reporting, because he wasn't compromised and he felt confident that he could report it. And um, and as soon as and I'm very convinced of this, as soon as Yvonne Rosales won, and that was an upset win, they they decided that retaliation wasn't enough and that they couldn't even send him away. You would think with all of their human resources to funnel their people into that area, to keep Dallas Hart there, to keep Brady there, to keep Jones there, to keep Roddick there, to keep Bernabe there. Bernabe is not new to that area. Bernabe there, to keep all of these. Clem Coward there. He's been there for so long, and then they put him in the sexual assault in Washington D.C. They got rid of him to protect him, but they didn't do that to Richard. They took his life. They decided to take his life because it upset them that Yvonne Rosales um, won that. Um, it was like an election in July, right? Was it July 14th? She won that election, and they were upset, and they didn't have anything. If she would have, and she did look into his case, and she clearly they saw the retaliation, and They've already whitewashed, did the 86 on the retaliation in Richard's file because it's so damning to them what they did to Richard, right? It's so damning abuse of power to them. And just like the 86 uh, Judge Roger Rodriguez's whistleblower report identifying Leilani Hart and CID agent Tavita Nusa as the prime suspects in Richard's murder case. So, they 86'd a lot. They tried to 86 Nadal Bayim, the Palestinian arms dealer, right? That's the father-in-law of Bradford Bugado in the G3 of the 32nd ATCOM. They tried to, um, you know, 86 this, right? They try to cover it up. And, y- 4 years ago when I would say these things, oh my gosh, this is so big, and and people would say, oh, it couldn't be that big, it couldn't involve that many people. And then you see what they did with President Biden. Biden, I don't even, he wasn't even president, y'all, because he wasn't even able, right? He wasn't even able. And it just asks, it's so frustrating because you say, well, who was leading our country? All they were worried about was covering up, and attacking any kind of person that was asking questions, right? And they were just covering up. And whether it doesn't matter what party you're in or whatever, but when we vote, we want a true person, an able person to do the job, and to be lied to and deceived, um, and then to be obstructed constantly and write letter upon letter upon letter. And you don't even know who to write a letter to because you don't know who really is pulling the strings, because everything is upside down. And this is our taxpayer money, right? This is our taxpayer money. So who was motivating Merrick Garland, right? I mean, who was pulling the strings for Merrick Garland? Who was looking into all this crime, right? Who was pulling the strings for Mealy? Because Mealy, absolutely, his commander in chief Biden was you know out of out of touch. And so after the mutiny, I mean, I would even call it like a little, what would you call it? With President Trump, absolutely a mutiny, absolutely a mutiny, because they weren't following orders. They weren't following his orders, and they were colluding and conspiring against him. And you saw that with Kelly and Comey and Mealy, and everything going on at Fort Bliss. So, and the Walmart mass shooting, absolutely a grand theft mutiny. The Walmart mass shooting, I've really, you know, everybody has put their heads together here, and it is a grand theft mutiny. That's what that was. And, you know, but what do you call all those that were protecting Biden, right? Um, and deceiving, well, those that wanted to be deceived. Many of us knew, right? Many of us knew, and we were just trying to work the system that was a broken system. And that's what's so frustrating when you have a case like ours, that is so absolutely heartbreaking. And uh, yeah, it's and such a national security threat at the same time. It's really, I just can't even tell you the emotions with all of this. And we have really, really good news behind the scenes now. And when you get that good news finally, um, there's just a lot happening behind the scenes. And I think that the Ken Paxton um, article, where El Paso County and Travis County also is suing Ken Paxton, I think it is a huge indication of them. Just, it's like gnashing of teeth. It's like clawing, trying to, and you see that when you see Christina Sanchez's face, it's not a good face. It's not a good face. It's a worried face, and she should be worried. She's an absolute criminal, absolute criminal. I don't know about this other Travis lady, but I know that she's a total criminal. So, yeah, thank you so much for coming on. And Brady is a criminal too now. So we have Bernabe, we have Brady, we have Command Sergeant Major Jake Jakovitz, we have Stewart, we have Michael Garrett. Um, yeah, it just goes on and on. So, but we need to name them and we need to identify them because they need to be held accountable. So please pass that on. And thank you for your patience. Thank you for your